Hey, financial freedom seekers, and welcome to 2023. I put out a tweet this morning. It was a bit of a joke, but actually a bit of seriousness as well. And that is that 2023, you have one job, and that's to be better than 2022. Because 2022 was a rough ride, but we also need to remember that it's in our moments of most and maximum resistance that we build our muscles the strongest. So I'm back in the gym today because 1st of January, nothing special about it other than we retrain our brain to think slightly differently because we think that this is a moment of change, and therefore we reflect upon the things that are going to make the year ahead a much better year if we want to have a great year. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how to make 2023 your very best year financially. And it's going to be a very challenging year for many, but I'd like to give you the fundamental principles that I'm quietly reflecting upon to think about what I did wrong in 2022 so that I can do better in 2023. And I'll share that with you today. So the first thing in 2023 is to make it the best year financially is you need to split your money into 4 different buckets. I've covered this content before, but I'd like to go a little bit deeper in this video because it's the first one for 2023, and I'd like everyone to get the year moving in a very good way. And so the first bucket, as it were, is the one that really makes a big difference in most people's life, which is their spending. Unfortunately, most people never get beyond spending. In fact, they go negative spending by supplementing it through credit cards and debt. So what you've got to understand in managing your spending is that it's the foundational key. Without getting the spending right, you can never get on top of the financial curve to the point where you can start filling up some of the other buckets. So spending is best done in the same currency that the majority of your expenses are. Most people's expenses are in soft fiat currency. And soft fiat currency is a great thing, i.e. the pound, the dollar, wherever you live in the world, for spending until you reach a hyperinflationary cycle because it devalues at a greater and greater rate. And as it devalues at a greater rate, i.e. you can buy less goods with that money, you need to spend it faster in order to get ahead of the financial cycle. Now, what you spend it on determines whether 2023 will be a great year financially. If you have to spend it on supplementing, just meeting your everyday needs, then unfortunately, it's not going to get you ahead financially. So the key to understanding how to do that is look at if we can learn one thing from 2022, look at the companies that seemed incredibly strong, but blew up and went into complete financial ruin. It was because they didn't get a hold of 2 things, their balance sheet and their income statement. So your balance sheet is a list of all your assets and all your liabilities. And just because a company can screw it up is because they simply are not following it and tracking it in a financial responsible way. So one of the first things you need to do is understand what assets you have. Those may be negative. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. An asset is something that potentially puts money in your pocket or holds and maintains its value. So the very first thing is to understand what your balance sheet looks like. Are you full of liabilities and full of debt? In which case you just need to understand that relative to the assets that you have. So what assets do you have? For some of you, it may be nothing. For others of you, it might be a bunch of Bitcoin. It might be the house that you live in if it's paid off and it's not taking money out of your pocket through some kind of mortgage. Or it may be, a bar of gold, or it may be whatever you have invested in, cryptocurrencies, whatever. So you have your assets and your liabilities, then that's your balance sheet. And your job as a financial freedom seeker is to get your balance sheet where it's positive enough that it's generating what goes onto the income statement, which is cash flow. And so an income statement is just simply a trace of all the things, all the money that comes into your life versus all the money that goes out of your life. And you should have a very good understanding of your personal income statement. You should know whether you're spending less than you earn, or whether you're spending more than you earn and therefore supplementing it through either savings or debt. Now, the key is very challenging, but when I was completely broke in debt, my key was to understand that I had way more liabilities than assets. And my immediate reaction was to try and pay off all those liabilities and debt. And I never got further forward because I wasn't ever getting into the second bucket, which allows you to build the network effect with your wealth in order to get to the next stage. And so the key in spending is simply not taking currency risk. And so if, for example, you earn in Bitcoin and then you need to pay your mortgage, then you are at the mercy of the market and it can ruin all of your savings financially simply because you're taking currency risk with your spending. And so to get to complete stability in spending, you need to achieve two things. Firstly, you need an income statement which tracks exactly how much you spend and exactly how much you bring in. And you need to make what you bring in slightly greater than what you spend. Hopefully a lot greater over time, but in an inflationary environment, it's a very, very challenging thing to do. But here's what I learned in 2022. I spent time in El Salvador, and in El Salvador, with a large population on the poverty line, a very financially, challenged country in its population, got on the wrong side of the International Monetary Fund, destroyed its currency, now uses dollars and Bitcoin as legal tender. However, and it was also run, predominantly by corruption and gangs. Now, when those gangs were extorting a percentage of everybody's income, and it meant that they were going to lose their life or their family's life or their children's life, they always figured out a way of saving a percentage of their income for gangsters. And it was because it was urgent enough and important enough for them to do it. They found a way, or they made a way. And it was because of the importance of, the threat of losing what is most precious and dear to us, our life, our freedom, our family. But they always found a way. Now, as soon as the gangs weren't dominating, they immediately obviously thought, well, if I've got this extra percentage of my income that I hustle for, I can spend it on the finer things in life, or they could save it. And that's really getting into the second bucket. So your sole job in spending is to manage an income statement where you don't take currency risk. If the majority of your expenses are in dollars, then you do it all in dollars. And you have to try and spend less than you earn so that you can try and get to the second bucket. And the second bucket is what I call savings. Savings is cyclical as well. This is a really, really important point to understand how to make 2023 the best year financially. So what do I save in? Well, I save in hard money. What is hard money? Hard money is the opposite of fiat currency. Fiat currency continually increases in its supply, and it is designed to go down in value. And so if you save in fiat currency, you become poorer because the amount of goods that you can buy, because the prices of things are going up more than the value of your fiat currency, because you're not taking currency risk here, you end up, your savings deplete and deplete and deplete. And so therefore you have to work harder in order to try and generate more income so that you can try and have something more for savings, or you supplement it through debt. So savings, you have to actually save in things that store value over time. For me, there's only been two stores of value and hard money that I save in. The first is the traditional 5,000 years of storing value, gold. And the second is 14 years of significantly outperforming inflation over every 4-year cycle, which is Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin to me is a higher risk, but vastly superior form of hard money than gold. Gold is a lower risk, but really building for different types of strategies, and the possibility that the speculative nature of Bitcoin and its volatility relative to fiat currencies, you have to have some kind of hedge for that as well. And I've covered that in multiple videos, how I have a fiat hedge, a change of empire hedge, and a Bitcoin hedge. So let's get back to savings. So savings is done in hard money. The easiest form of money and the most simplest way is digital hard sound money, which is Bitcoin. But it comes with a greater degree of risk than gold, and gold is very hard to store, and you often have to hold it with a custodian, and therefore it becomes more like a different form of asset if we're going deeper into this. So save in hard money. Hard money is designed in order to combat money printing, fiat currency printing. How does it do that? Well, it has a fixed supply. So if you look at Bitcoin, the supply can never change, and proof of work ensures that no one can corrupt it to change it, and there was no pre-mine so that you don't have manipulators like you have with every other cryptocurrency. You either don't have proof of work to a strong enough secure level where things can trivial change, you have an influencer that had a pre-mine that can change the economics and act like a central banker, or you have, all the different, the things that other cryptocurrencies don't have that make Bitcoin act more like a commodity, so that you can rely upon its supply never changing through proof of work. But then you have gold, which is historically, no matter how much, you have gold rushes in the past, but historically you only get 2% increase in the supply, no matter what happens to the price. The Bitcoin rate has a difficulty adjustment when more people are mining it, and gold tends to adjust where it never increases more than 2%, so you have hard money. For most of the younger generation, they'll be more connected to Bitcoin in their initial when savings are low, and then over time you might diversify as you need more safety in your life, and start to think about the other forms of protections that you want in your savings. So savings only has one job, and that's to beat fiat currency over a long term. Now, the reason I say cyclical in savings is because most people try and speculate short term with their savings because they can't save. So they go direct from income that they generate for spending and try and put it straight into what's the third bucket, investment bucket. But you need savings in the middle, and it only can be achieved through hard money. It can't be achieved through soft currency because it breaks the rules and violates the principles. Now, the reason that it's cyclical is because most people, in order to have an amazing 2023 year financially, you got to think about having an amazing result in 2030. And so really Bitcoin goes in a 4-year cycle historically, and I've been through them all. And also elections go through 4 years cycles. Now that I'm getting back to my book in 2023, I'll be going through all the different cycles that I look at. But if you can do a minimum of a 4-year, ideally 10-year cycle in planning your savings and your finances, then 2023 will be the best year ever, because the people that I know that generated the most amount of savings to invest, they did it during bear markets. So when everybody else is completely counter-cyclical, when everybody else is selling, you want to be taking some of the leftover income from your spending money and putting it in savings, because if you value your wealth in hard money and you earn and spend in fiat currency, then the lower the value of hard money, the more you can accumulate during the bad cycles. So this puts you in the mindset of valuing your wealth and your savings in hard money. When you value your wealth and your savings in hard money, you want the price in bear cycles to go down. So Bitcoin is gone from 69,000 to approximately 16, 17,000 at the moment. And there's some more shock black swan events I expect within the industry that could take it lower. I was preparing people throughout the whole of 2022 in order to be accumulating at lower and lower rates in their savings every month, no matter what the price is. And I did that through the whole of 2022. Did not deviate. So by valuing my wealth in Bitcoin, I ended up with more Bitcoin in my savings than I did because fiat currency was inflating and Bitcoin was going down in value. And therefore, I earn more and more Bitcoin within my savings, which allows me to then get to the third bucket. So in order to understand the second bucket, you need to go through cycles. If you think in 4 to 8 to 10 to 15 to intergenerational cycles, then you will do better and better financially this year because it will all be about how do I ensure that my balance sheet and income statement looks good enough so that I can accumulate hard money at cheaper rates so that I can then get to the next cycle where your savings tends to appreciate in value relative to fiat currency. There's no guarantees here, but this is what hard money brings, the ability to just save rather than skip straight to the third bucket, which is investment bucket. Now, in the investment bucket is based upon a principle that I learned a long time ago when trying to pay off my debt. I was trying to work harder to pay off my debt and I never got ahead. So what I did is I used the concept of paying myself first, which is why I first invested in Bitcoin at $3. And I started to fill my savings account as a result of thinking in these different types of buckets. The lesson that I learned was that income follows assets. Most people, they try and generate more income so that they can buy assets. Now that's the first rule. That's the spending and saving rule. Once you have savings, you then go to investing. And then the more assets that you have, the more income you need to eventually get it to. Because what you want to do in trying to achieve financial freedom is taking it away from working for your income to your assets generating income. That takes a long time to achieve. I'm not going to lie to you and say that that can be achieved in 2023. It may be depending on what asset base you're building it from. So most people in this cyclical nature, remember we're thinking cyclical, is that everybody will be moving towards forgetting about everything that happened in the Bitcoin industry in 2022, going back to savings, which is putting your money, your Bitcoin in a hardware wallet, but I will still be investing a percentage because the more distressed assets you can find in the current market, then the better you can do for either your company, for you as an individual, or even for your country. So El Salvador is using the bear market to accumulate more Bitcoin. Once it accumulates more Bitcoin, it should be able to invest. And then once you invest, eventually you have to get to income following assets. So the more assets you have, the more income it generates. And then if you choose, you can replace your income from working with the assets. So you want to replace yourself eventually with an asset by having a long-term financial plan on how to get there. So everybody might be thinking, well, Bitcoin doesn't generate yield, and that's truth. And we had a complete mess of corrupt financial villains, as I covered in previous videos, that essentially took everybody's money in order to generate yield and income for them. But I've not given up on that goal. And that goal will be very counter-cyclical and probably criticized, but I will continue to invest in companies that are going to be much more reasonable valuations. I will do the same as what I do in every market. And I will continue to look for ways to put those assets to work to generate income. Flush out all the fake yield, flush out all the fake income, flush out all the Ponzi schemes, unregulated centralized companies, and look for where the real yield comes, because originally there was a buoyant peer-to-peer market where people wanted to use your Bitcoin to speculate. They put collateral down and they were willing to pay yield for it. And you can still do that on a person-to-person basis. There was still some DeFi in the Ethereum ecosystem that survived. Can't wait for that to come to Bitcoin. And we won't, we got to make sure that we know the mistakes that were made in 2022 and previously, because eventually you still, whatever you do, you're either going to end up selling your assets in order to invest in income generating assets so that it pays for your income as you get elderly and need to supplement it because you can no longer work. But eventually, through your financial planning, your investment bucket needs to do two things. The first thing it needs to do is it needs to attempt to outperform your savings by taking higher risk. And those risks should be disclosed, and it should be done in compliance with securities laws and everything that wasn't done in 2022 that led to the blow up. But the lesson should not be that you don't invest. Because your savings is still your savings bucket, and a percentage of your savings needs to go into investing, and investing has two goals. It is to invest in assets that could outperform your savings by taking additional risk. And if you diversify enough, it never up your complete investment bucket, because one thing going wrong does not lead to everything going wrong, the destruction of your investment bucket, your savings bucket, to the point where some people couldn't even meet their expenses and went homeless. That's how extreme it got for some. So investing is about eventually accumulating enough assets that outperform your savings so that you can then invest them in yield that gives you income, because income follows assets. The wealthiest 1% in the world, most people get on the wrong side of these cycles because of the way our fiat currency system is designed, because they don't implement hard money in their life. And therefore they get on the wrong side of the wealth cycle, where the wealthy people accumulate all the assets and they accumulate all the real estate. They charge rent to those that can't afford and need to supplement their income. And the wealth inequality gets greater and greater because of the fiat Ponzi scheme and because people are thinking in fiat currency savings, and they never get ahead of the cycle. So that's the third bucket. The third bucket is investment. It's designed as a recap to outperform your savings by taking additional risks, diversify so that one mistake never blows up the whole thing, because in investing you will always make things that go wrong, and eventually building the asset pool because it beats your savings to the point where you can generate income that replaces working for income, which is the first bucket. Okay, so what's the final bucket? The final bucket is contribution. Contribution is really broken down into a few things for me. The first is where you take some of your assets and some of your income, however you manage your finances, and you do it into the things, and you invest it into the things that make life worth living. The big contributors to fulfillment in life, from my experience, is your spiritual needs, your spiritual contributions, giving to people outside yourself that make you feel more selfless and more grateful for the things that you have. So by being able to contribute to others, you get to experience gratitude for the things that you have, which takes you out of what I call the reptilian brain and into the empire brain, because you are grateful for the things that you have in life, because there's always somebody that needs your contribution, which values yourself as an individual, which puts a new belief cycle, but new belief cycles lead to new actions lead to better results, and you have this cycle where you take better actions as a result. That's just one of my personal. Also, investing in the spiritual mind and the spirit is a way of feeling in a much more empowered state in order to achieve the things in 2023, because one thing is guaranteed: shitloads of change, and everyone's going to throw shit at you in 2023. So investing in your ability to be able to attach your own meaning to things, rather than the meaning that the world sends at you in traditional media, And so that leads to the second thing in the contribution bucket, which is growth. And growth for me is where you invest in the things that make you a better person. And there's a real challenge, and one of my real big lessons in 2022 was getting the balance right between I continually like to put myself in new environments where I learn new things from people that think very differently, because I like to get myself out of an echo chamber. And an echo chamber is where you continually are in social media or on, listening to the same things time and time again. One of my biggest mistakes in 2022 was taking that a bit to the extreme. And so I spent a lot of time with people where I wasn't valued. And therefore you get out of the echo chamber, so you see and you're able to analyze your world in a different way and understand things from different perspectives, which is great. But at the same time, being around places which are completely unproductive and destructive to your personal growth, it means that your mind starts shrinking into a place where you're not productive and you do less productive work. And I found myself in some of these states in 2022. And so I've always not blocked people on Twitter for a reason. The reason is I don't want to stay in an echo chamber. But I made a distinction that blocking is actually a really good feature when you have people that are completely toxic and destructive to your personal ability to perform at your best and your highest level. And when you find yourself too much in that, it can actually shrink you as a person and take you to a place where you don't want to go. And so the balance that you have to get right in the growth side is continually learning. That's why books are brilliant. Go deeper. Don't just go into YouTube. Subscribe to this channel. We like to go deep in long content, short form content as well. But putting yourself in a position where you're learning new things that you can experientially implement into your life gives you growth, and your ability to contribute that to others that are important to you, not to the people that are complete destructive and toxicity in your life. So one thing I did too much in 2022 is I contributed to myself to people that really, really didn't want the help. And by doing that, I wasted valuable time, and all I can do now is reflect upon that lesson and make sure that you're not in an echo chamber, because that's a dangerous thing as well, but go where you're celebrated, not hated, and block those that hate you to the point where they're not engaging in good debate. They're not engaging in growing you as a person by challenging you to the next way of thinking, maybe spotting a trend or a cycle that you haven't spotted. And so you've got to get this balance right in the growth of keeping your mind open to things that can enhance you and obliterating the things that are just giving you complete destruction, and shrinking you as a human. Because when you're shrunk as a human, you cannot give more of yourself to those that want your help, that are receptive. And the key to fulfillment for me is being able to see the material impact and the things that you can do in other people's life outside of you, and investing in what I spiritually believe is the karmic pot of giving what you get, and really every cause having an effect. And so the fourth bucket for me is also doing the things that are fun in life. What is the point of achieving financial freedom if you can't enjoy the fruits of all your hard work? And so to make 2023 a great year, you need to have lots of things that you consider fun, but you don't invest in them from the spending pot. Otherwise, you end up in the credit card debt cycle of fiat currency and soft money. You need to spend less than you earn and always put the difference in your savings account, which is measured in hard money, that performs the best in bear markets if you're thinking in a 4-year to 10-year cycle. Then you have the funds, if you increase and measure in hard money, to be able to make investments so that eventually your asset pool increases, where you can have more assets that generate more income, take more risk, and then that gives you more to be able to contribute to the things that make life worth living, fun, your growth that makes you a better person, so that you can then contribute more to those that need your support. That is probably the most fulfilling part of life that you will experience. And so I hope that this was a useful message. And unfortunately, I could give you the BS that 2023, to make it the best financial year, you need to invest in this or that altcoin or that shitcoin or that secret or that special thing that you don't have access to in the club, or you need to trade and speculate. But the reality is, to make 2023 your best year financially, think about the assets that you want to accumulate, value your wealth in hard money, make sure that you get yourself in a position where you have enough soft money not to take currency risk, and recognize that the key to life is that the key to fulfillment, from my perspective, is a greater sense of purpose, a greater sense of contribution, more karmic deposits, and doing the things that make being completely grateful for everything that you heard. Because remember, your worst year would be somebody else's best year that they would do anything to have. So come from that place of gratitude, and 2023 will be your best financial year. Think beyond the 1 year cycle. Think of the 4 year cycle, the 10-year cycle, and even then you can start thinking about the intergenerational 100-year cycle as you build intergenerational wealth by following these fundamental principles. It's never too late. Most people, I'll end with, they vastly overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. So let's make oh, my mic's falling down, it's shaking around too much. Always remember, you are alive at one of the most interesting and exciting times in financial history. Some are going to do really well, others are going to do really badly. Subscribe to this channel, like this channel, share this with somebody else that needs some support in figuring out how to make 2023 their best year financially. We're going to be doing it with peace, we're going to be doing it with love, we're going to be doing it with unity. And I just had my first workout of 2023. My cycles, my routines went completely out of sync in 2022, but I'm back to what's important. Giving value, spending time with those that want to spend time, that want the support, and contributing as much as I can as we enter into these crazy, turbulent financial markets. Peace.